Previously on United States history. The colonists were becoming a little upset with the king.
Suddenly, the blast of a musket rings out. More shots follow. As the smoke clears, 5 colonists lie dead.
My name is Richard Henry Lee, Virginia is my home. My name is Richard Henry Lee, Virginia is my home. And may my horses turn to glue if I can't deliver up to you my resolution on independency.
When the unhappy and deluded multitude, against whom this force shall be directed, shall become sensible of their error, I shall be ready to receive the misled with tenderness and mercy. For those who persist in their treason, the punishment shall be death by hanging.
Vote stands. 12 for independence, none against, 1 abstention. Resolution carried.
Therefore, the representatives of the United States of America solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown.
For the support, this declaration is a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, fortunes, and our sacred honor.
God save our American state! God save our American state!
Sound the retreat.
Sound! Retreat!
Dear Charlotte, the war has turned. General Cornwallis took flight with his army and moved north. We continued to engage the British, and in the months that followed, Cornwallis entrenched himself at Yorktown, Virginia. George Washington escaped from the north undetected and surrounded Cornwallis, who could not retreat to the seas. It was blocked off by our long-lost friends, who had finally arrived. Vive la France!
Vive la liberté!
À tous les canons! Tirez!
My lord, I beseech you. You must order the surrender.
How could it come to this? An army of rabble, peasants. Everything will change. Everything has changed.
We had won the war against Britain. Now what do? Well, what we get is our very first government. It's our very first chapter in American history. It's a chapter forgotten by history because it failed so much. It's called the Articles of Confederation. It was written by a committee headed by John Dickinson, the very man who fought so hard to remain British during our Revolution. So what did our government look like under this Articles of Confederation? Why did it fail? Well, first of all, there was no federal court system, meaning there was no way of handling any federal cases in the courts. Next, after the Revolution, people were terrified of putting another king in power. So what they did is they gave all the power to the states instead of the federal government. A confederation is supposed to hold the states together like glue. However, it basically ended up holding it together like Scotch tape. So if the states had all the power, who was in charge? They put a man in charge titled the President of the United States in Congress assembled. They served 1-year terms and basically had no power. The very first one was a guy by the name of John Hanson. Some consider him to be the first president of the United States. And he was the first president under the Articles of Confederation, after we had won the Revolutionary War. Does this mean that George Washington was not the first president of the United States? Of course it doesn't. George Washington was the first president of the United States, and John Hanson was the first president of the United States in Congress assembled. The two are completely different. So did anything good come out of this Articles of Confederation period? Actually, one really good thing did. It was the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. It's going to eventually create 5 new states. And the best thing it did, it outlawed slavery in this new territory. So we're taking steps towards no slavery. The final pages in this failed chapter of American history comes with Shays' Rebellion. In Massachusetts, farmers were absolutely bankrupt and were being taxed to death by the Massachusetts government. So they started attacking tax collectors. Hey, it worked once before, it can work again, right? Remember this? The state militia and the farmers were literally having battles all over Massachusetts. The federal government needed to step in and stop this. However, they had no power to do so, so they did absolutely nothing. Shays' Rebellion is going to be the final nail in the coffin for the Articles of Confederation. People are now going to realize that it's not going to work and they're going to want a new government system. So why did this Articles of Confederation fail so miserably? Well, to start out with, the states had all the power, so the federal government was incredibly weak. So it couldn't deal with things like this and was doing a very poor job of keeping the states together. Also, the federal government had no power to tax people to pay for things like troops to deal with things like this. Also, there was no foreign power, no courts, and just overall, the federal government had no power whatsoever, which caused this to fail miserably. So they finally decided that a new government was needed, and they're going to write a new constitution. So tune in tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel.